This is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 phone and I experienced it in beautiful Hawaii. So your next generation of Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 will of course have a powerful CPU and GPU, but it will also have better power efficiency and more importantly on-device AI enabled by 98% better NPU. We'll talk all about the greatness of Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and the future Android flagships that it's going to power. If you're here for the first time, I'm Arshad, you're watching Trakin English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. So first things first, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is actually based on a 4nm fabrication process from TSMC and not 3nm like everybody expected it to be, similar to Apple's A17 Pro.
Snapdragon Summit used to be in December, and then it moved to November,
Yeah.
and now it's in October.
Yeah.
And that's because we've pulled our commercial availability dates for our mobile platform,
Okay.
8 Gen 3, up so that our partners could launch new devices
Sooner.
to hit selling cycles that are important to them. So, for
What's
example,
the selling cycle that's important? The holiday
Singles
season?
Day.
Oh.
So for China, Singles Day, which is 11/11, is a
Yes.
very important selling day.
Interesting.
So 11/11, 12/12, and then Chinese New Year are really important selling cycles in China.
Right.
And Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year is obviously important across Asia.
Right.
But they really wanted to hit Singles Day.
Fascinating.
And get new, and because it's a huge selling cycle for them.
Your CPU architecture is 152 setup where you have the 1 prime core, 5 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores. So the prime core is a Cortex X4 clocked at 3.3 GHz. And in your 5 performance cores, all of them are A720 and you've got 3 cores clocked at 3.2 GHz and 2 of them clocked at 3 GHz. And your 2 final efficiency cores are the A520 cores clocked at 2.3 GHz. Now with this, what Qualcomm is promising is 30% faster CPU and 20% better power efficiency as well. On the GPU side, you've got an Adreno GPU, but it's a no-name one. We're presuming it's the Adreno 750, but we're not so sure yet. But again, Qualcomm claims that you've got a 25% better GPU, faster GPU, and 25% better power efficiency as well. But more importantly, like I mentioned, it's the 98% better NPU where it's at, which of course works at 40% better power efficiency. To close off the specs, you've got LPDDR5X RAM support, of course, but at 4.8 GHz peak power. But more importantly, you want to know about the benchmark scores, right? It benchmarks really well. In Antutu, it scores 2.14 million, which is definitely way higher than the 1.62 million that the Realme GT5 scored when we tested it out. And it definitely matches up even more than the 30% better performance, faster performance that Qualcomm is claiming. So that's really good. More importantly, in Geekbench's single core and multi-core scores, the multi-core scores are actually beating the A17 Pro, and that was surprising to me. So yeah, Apple, you've got nothing on you this year, unfortunately. But there are some really early tests by GeekaOne, and the numbers over there are very promising as well. You should go check that video out. Now, gaming performance also has been improved on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. The first thing that you get on the gaming side is support for 240 FPS gameplay, and if you have a display that can do 240 Hz, then you can make use of that 240 FPS. And I'm sure that Asus is definitely salivating at the mouth, and definitely the ROG phone next year will support this. And apart from that, you've got support for improved ray tracing as well. 40% better ray tracing performance is what Qualcomm claims, but more importantly, you get support for Unreal Engine 5 Lumen as well, which means that the lighting effects have improved by leaps and bounds. So we did get a chance to check an upcoming game called Justice Mobile, which actually enables these lighting effects and ray tracing effects, and it's coming in 2024, and it definitely looks very impressive with the ray tracing switched off and switched on. I really want games to come with the ray tracing support. We've been talking about ray tracing, but that's not happened yet, so hopefully it happens this year. The beach is so beautiful. Anyway, more importantly, what I want to talk about is also the fact that you do get 1 hour more gaming according to Qualcomm. Now, what is the benchmark that they're running? I'm not so sure of, but better power efficiency is what you can expect. Also, Snapdragon enables super resolution gaming now, so there is going to be like upscaling happening up to 8K, and again, it looked very good in the tech demo that Qualcomm showed off. All right, let's move on from performance to cameras. Snapdragon Sight. With Snapdragon Sight, HDR is going to be done slightly differently now. Instead of doing multi-exposure HDR like most of the brands have been doing till now, there's something called a dual gain HDR that Qualcomm is introducing for the very first time on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Now with dual gain HDR, it will be able to shoot images at 2 different ISOs or probably even more and then fuse them together. So what this will help is far less ghosting effects, and it can happen real time as well. So I'm really excited about that, to see it in action and how OEMs are going to be implementing that in their devices as well. Now, another thing that I noticed is that Dolby HDR photos are going to become a thing in the future. Dolby hasn't named it yet, is what Qualcomm tells us, but it's going to be like Dolby Vision for photos. So you'll be able to capture 10-bit colors at Rec 2020, and the kind of picture difference, the kind of specular highlights, and the kind of details that I saw were very impressive. And with 10-bit HDR panels on phones becoming like a regular thing, and with OnePlus Open getting Pro XDR, Google doing HDR on its panels as well, I'm really excited to see how Dolby HDR pictures will pan out in the future, but it does look very impressive. And there are a bunch of AI-based camera features that we saw as well. So video night vision is going to be one of it. So on device, it will be able to pull in more details from low light video, and the tech demo looked very impressive. Apart from that, you've also got a new video object eraser, which is a step above the photo object eraser. Of course, it looked impressive in the tech demos, but how it will actually pan out in real world devices is something we'll have to check out. One other thing that was very impressive was the vlogger's view, which means that you can actually take a video with the front camera and superimpose yourself over the rear camera's footage. So if you're at a concert, you can like put yourself in it. And of course, this has many use cases, and it's definitely one of the better ways to make use of the always sensing hub. And apart from that, one very interesting feature that I saw with the AI is the fact that you get photo expansion now. So you know what, if you take a picture and if you zoom out, it will add in details by itself to make the photo look wider. Now, I don't see a regular use case for this, but it was an interesting tech demo for sure. All right, for the audio nerds in the house and the audiophiles like myself, you also have upgrades to Snapdragon Sound. So firstly, Snapdragon Sound has a support for 24-bit 96 kHz audio, and that will happen with aptX Adaptive. And you know what? aptX Adaptive is actually like a better codec than LDAC itself. I will definitely make a full video about this and why that is so, but stay tuned for that. Also on Snapdragon Sound, there are of course going to be AI improvements with ANC and ambient aware. Those are things that look very interesting as well. But the most important upgrade to Snapdragon Sound is X-Band technology. Here what Qualcomm is going to do with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is actually use a micro Wi-Fi solution to ensure that you get better range, better connectivity. It's just a whole lot of stuff happening, and Snapdragon Sound based products are definitely going to be very, very impressive. One new interesting baseline platform that Snapdragon introduced was the Snapdragon Seamless platform. Now what Snapdragon Seamless is basically what Apple does with continuity. So if you have multiple Snapdragon devices, they're connected and they talk to each other, and of course you can transfer files, and you can of course take photo from the camera of the phone and then move it to the laptop as well, and that works really well too. But more importantly, you can see information like how much battery is there on your phone or your smartwatch or your truly wireless earbuds. There was an Honor tech demo of this where the laptop's keyboard could be used to actually type something on the phone itself. So Snapdragon Seamless, what Snapdragon wants to do is to give this platform to everybody, and it's not limited to Snapdragon devices itself. Even MediaTek could probably use it, and this is something very, very exciting. One of the most important things that people talk about with respect to Apple devices is the ecosystem itself. So ecosystem play with Android, Windows, maybe even Linux, all of that, if they come in together, then there is definitely something to talk about and something to see as well in the future. And with respect to AI, it's going to support 10 billion parameters, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and there are a few language learning models that are pre-installed on device. For example, Meta's Llama 2 is going to be pre-installed. And what this enables is on-device personalized AI, and you can create personal profiles of yourself, and it will give you responses based on what you actually do with the phone and what are your preferences as well. For example, you could be a fitness freak, and if you ask what should you be doing in Hawaii, then it will give you things that are related to fitness, but for someone like me, it will probably tell me where do I eat. And of course, with Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, you will have the latest X75 modem for 5G support and Wi-Fi 7 as well. Oh, one very important thing that I forgot is that there were demos of very interesting new hardware that actually is present on this reference device as well. For example, there's a spectrometer that can actually figure out the moisture in your skin, so you have to, what kind of lotion that you need to use. It will actually be able to tell you that. And you can also use this spectrometer to check the freshness of your food and if you can eat it or not. And with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 devices, you're also going to get some of the best AQI readings and smoke detection as well.
My answer would be it depends on the task.
Okay.
Or on the application.
Okay.
There are a lot of things that can happen 100% on device
Okay.
if your platform,
Yeah.
if your chip can handle it. Obviously, in the Pixel's case, it can't.
It can't.
So that was sort of a little bit of a fake. But we can handle up to 10 billion parameters on HN3.
Yes.
So a large language model like a Llama 2 at 7 billion parameters, if there is a task or a workload or a application that is 4 billion parameters in order for it to complete its whatever it is doing, that can happen 100% on device. But there are going to be cases and use cases in general where you may have something happen 100% on device. You may start on device and then hand off to the cloud. You may actually have multiple steps.
Can you bring a specific example of that?
So you may use on-device AI to accelerate the task,
Right.
but then finish it off in the cloud.
Got it.
If it's something that's bigger than 7 billion or bigger than 13 billion or 10 billion or whatever the maximum is, obviously that has to go to the cloud to come back.
So with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, Qualcomm has gone above and beyond, I would say personally, because it's not just improvements to performance and power efficiency, but proper improvements to artificial intelligence on device as well. Now, how brands actually use that artificial devices to create their own products is something that we'll have to wait and watch. But you know, how we review products is also going to become different, and it's going to become more personalized in the future. So, for example, Honor could be doing something where, they have a magic capsule which looks at your eye, tracks your eye, and then, shows up the notification when you look at it. But Samsung could do something else. Everybody, how they tune their software will be very, very important. And of course, 8 Gen 3 is powerful, way more powerful than Google Tensor will ever be, honestly. And it's doing the AI stuff real time on device too, which is fantastic. So what do you guys think of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 platform? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe. Also, bye-bye from Hawaii.